see you.
Tell me when you're ready. Well, thank you all for being here, and it's wonderful to be in Westchester. It's great to be with some of my friends who I do so much good work with. Careful, sorry. Marion Carr, our supervisor, thank you so much for the work you do. Been a great partner to me, and of course the county executive, Coach Latimer, who is just such a rock star and is doing such great work here in Westchester County. No, I mean it. I work with a lot of local officials, and you guys are tops. And we're also joined by Leah Carroll, who's right here, who's with the Hudson Gateway Area Realtors. Have I got that name? Hagar, Legislative Committee, and also we're joined by Maureen Warren. Celebrate something that I've worked so hard at, which is a restoration of the state and local tax deductions that were taken from us in the 2017 tax bill. What does that mean? What that means is that the property tax and income tax burden here in New York was significantly increased, because here we are blessed with homes that are valuable, but that means high local property values, and that sits alongside a high local property tax burden and a relatively high state and local tax burden. And part of that is because we invest in our communities, we invest in our schools, we believe in providing services to people, but it's also a burden to our taxpayers. And as we have succeeded in capping and keeping that burden, the focus of our attention, those efforts were completely undermined by the 2017 tax legislation. So it meant an effective tax increase for thousands of local taxpayers. And with the Build Back Better Act that is moving its way through the Senate, that has passed the House, we will restore that SALT deduction, as we call it, state and local tax deduction, up to $80,000 a year. It's currently 10. That will effectively mean everybody right now who has lost their local tax deductions will get them back. Everybody who lost their local tax deductions will get them back, and will get them back in 2022 for the 2021 tax year. That's a big deal, and it's going to mean better services locally. It's going to mean better home values. It's going to mean a stronger economy here in the Hudson Valley and in the other areas of the country that were the target of this vicious tax scheme that I believe never should have happened. The average deduction in Westchester right now is, I believe, north of $80,000, which means that $70,000 is now currently unavailable to be deducted. I believe the median property tax in Westchester County is $10,000, which would consume 100% of the cap under current law, and would leave none of your income tax, local income tax, subject to deduction. So this is a big win. It's a big win in Westchester, and I couldn't be prouder that it is on the cusp of becoming law. And while it's still moving around a little bit, I feel confident in saying that this is going to be a cornerstone of the Build Back Better Act that you'll be hearing much more about. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to my friend, George Latimer, who's done so much to lead Westchester County through some tough times, through the pandemic. We just had a big re-election, so congratulations on that. Very proud of you on that. I like anybody who wins tough elections. And it means you're doing a great job and the people know it. So, County Executive George Latimer. Thank you. You bet.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to stand here with Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney in support of the great work that he's done, he and his colleagues, and also in Westchester, we're fortunate to have Mondaire Jones and Jamal Bowman, who serve alongside. But Sean Patrick is our most senior member of the House, and he shows that seniority with his leadership on this issue and many others. This issue is very important to understand at a very practical level. When you receive a salary, you get a certain amount of money, and there's a deduction made to put aside for your federal and your state income taxes. And in New York State, that money is not discretionary money that you get. When the feds under the Donald Trump administration and the House leadership of that day, and Mitch McConnell in the Senate, when they got rid of the SALT deduction, they wanted you to be taxed on your income that included the money that you never got that you used to pay state income tax. And then similarly, when you pay local property taxes, which you pay every year, whatever that amount is, however that much is, that you would be taxed as if you had that money discretionarily. And that is simply not fair. Now, they'll argue about the discrepancies between different states, and there are some colored states and other colored states that are different. But in New York State, in the state that Mary Ann Carr, myself, and others govern in, we provide services that you may not see in another state. I lived for a while in the state of Ohio. When I lived in Ohio, I had to pay a separate amount of money for garbage. It was a separate contracted service in the city of Hudson. Here in Westchester County, the service of collecting garbage and disposing of it is a joint municipal county function, which you pay for in your property taxes. So when somebody says, well, you pay more property taxes in Bedford than you did in Hudson, Ohio, yes, because that is built into the system of services that you receive. When you look at what happens to an individual when they file their income taxes under itemized deductions and they pull out those numbers, you have to realize that they're not getting a benefit from the federal government. They're retaining the benefit because they've already paid out money to state and local governments who do services. The day that Texas has mass transit will be the first day that I'm aware of it. But here in New York, we have a robust mass transit, go right down the hill to the Bedford Hills train station. That Metro North structure, the MTA, is paid for in part by our state and local taxes. And that is what keeps our environment clean, by having a cleaner way to go into the city rather than everybody in a car bumper to bumper. When I worked for that company in Texas, and was outside, the headquarters outside of Houston, whenever I had to go into Houston, there was only one way to get into Houston. Get in your car, bumper to bumper on I-45 into the heart of the city. So New York and New Jersey and Illinois and Massachusetts and Pennsylvania have done something different. They see those services as being warranted. Maureen, who is here representing teachers, understands that in New York, we value education. That's the education system that I came out of, public school system in Mount Vernon, New York. And that public education system invests in things like special education for children. Not every place in this country does. Not every place in this country has IEPs for students who have special needs. We make that investment in New York. And not only has Sean Patrick been involved in the Congress of the United States, but he was a critical person in state government and in the executive branch for a while. And those priorities are New York values. And so by standing up for the restoration of the SALT deduction, we're standing up for New York values, things that we believe as elected officials, as people, that we ought to provide certain services so that the people who live here can have those benefits. And if it results in higher taxes, they don't have that discretionary money, and to tax it at the federal government is just a way to offset the massive tax cuts that the Trump administration was authorizing to those who are very wealthy and those very successful businesses. So what Congressman Maloney and others have done is to stand up for the little guy here, to stand up for those of us who aren't wealthy and now have to pay more in federal taxes because of this, and to fight to get that deduction back. And again, Congressman, thank you for your leadership. Without it, we wouldn't be here today.
Thank you, George. Thanks so much. And I'd like to welcome, I'd like to welcome up Lady Carol from the Realtors, who can tell you what this has meant and what it's going to mean. Go ahead.
Thanks, Congressman. Thanks, George. Good morning, everybody. So we're here today to thank Representative Sean Patrick Maloney and the Congress for passing the Build Back Better bill that amends the 2017 SALT tax cap. The 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which capped SALT deductions at $10,000, not only increased the cost of home ownership in New York for existing homeowners, but it suppressed those in the working and middle class seeking to grow or begin building generational wealth through home ownership. And it deterred the younger buyers from being the next generation of homeowners in New York, contributing to the brain drain of our great region for other areas and states that were more economically appealing. It has been a long-known fact that owning your own home is the American dream, and homeowners have pride of ownership. They stabilize neighborhoods and create a foundation for wealth building for future generations, in large part because homeowners have afforded tax breaks that renters have not. By increasing the cap from $10,000 to $80,000, the pull of owning one's own home will be restored, providing stability in burgeoning neighborhoods, allowing our young people to stay in the Hudson Valley so we can benefit from their forward-thinking knowledge, and keeping New York a place that millions want to call home. I thank you. The Realtor Association in this Hudson Valley thanks you, and thank you, George, as well.
Hey, thanks, Lynn. Thank you so much. And finally, our last speaker will be my friend Mary Ann Carr, who's here, who can talk about what this means at the local level. And I'm sorry if some of our friends outside have followed me. I never thought I would see the day when Republicans would protest a tax cut. We're here announcing a tax cut for hardworking people in the Hudson Valley, and some people don't like it, but that just tells you what's going on in our politics. Go ahead.
Thank you, Congressman and County Executive George Landmore. As you know, we've had a lot of influx of new families moving into our area, so this particular tax cut is going to mean a lot to this community and to the residents of this community. And so I just want to thank Congressman Maloney for really putting this forward and making sure that New York State and the regular working class person is not forgotten in terms of home ownership and getting the tax breaks that they deservingly need. Many people here are, working class people. We're not all wealthy, as County Executive George Landmore said. And again, when I'm out at different events, I'm just amazed at all the different new young families that have moved to this area, and it will have a big impact to those families.
Thank you, Marianne. That's really helpful. All right, any questions for the press? Yes, sir.
Yes, I know you're saying that this $80,000 cap looks like it's going to be passed, but
That's right.
In the Senate, I know Senator Sanders has had some issues with it and some others. Are you confident it's going to pass the Senate in this form, or some other?
I'm very confident it's going to pass the Senate. And if it gets modified, I think it'll be minor modifications. So the answer to your question is I think we're on the 1 yard line here, and we're going to punch it into the end zone. It's been a fight. It's not been easy getting back people's local tax deductions, but we have been focused on this like a laser beam, and we're going to get it done.
It is true, though, that you're getting both bipartisan support on this. Is
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I'm old enough to remember when Republicans liked tax cuts, and this one was targeted at New York. So this was always about screwing the state of New York and other states like it, where we, as the county executive said, have real mass transit that gets people to work, where we support our schools. Sometimes I hear people say they're moving to Florida, and then they'll say, but I'm waiting until my kid graduates from high school. And what they mean is that the taxes here are a burden. We know that. But they're getting something for it. They know that too. And what's so wrong about this tax increase by taking away people's deductions is that you made those tax burdens higher, effectively. And this will get them back to where they were. Oh, and you know what? I left out one speaker. I'm so sorry, Maureen. Come on over here. Come on. No, this is on me. See, this is what happens. This is Maureen Warren, our representative from NYSED. Thank you so much for joining us today. And please, I'm so glad you reminded me.
Thank you so much.
Forgetful.
No, not at all.
But
Thank you.
yeah, tell us what this means to
today.
education, because that's a big part of this.
Well, it's a huge win for education, for teachers. Many of my younger colleagues are in households where both partners are teachers, and this will bring a great relief to them in terms of their tax burden as they try to raise their families, young families here in the Hudson Valley. And in addition, retirees, newly retirees, and retirees who have been in the area for quite some time will be able to stay in their homes and continue to support the economy in the Hudson Valley, which is critically important to New York State. I also wanted to thank you for the increase in deduction for teachers for out-of-pocket expenses, which is, every colleague that I've ever had spends money out of their own pocket to support their students, to support their classrooms and their instructional endeavors. So I thank you for that as well.
Thank you. That's such an important
Appreciate
point.
it.
All right, sorry. Any other questions?